When playing The Elder Scrolls V, you reach a bit of a conundrum, like which side to join. On one half, you've got Ulfric Stormcloak, leader of the Stormcloak Rebellion, in Windhelm, and on the other side you've got General Tullius in Solitude. But it's not like there's an obvious side to join, is there? Hmm? 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 To avoid a debate, I'm just going to focus on the facts this video, and I'm going to start off talking about Windhelm because it's one of the best looking cities in the game, and it's got a really cool origin story, and I'm going to blend that in to talk about the Stormcloak Rebellion and Ulfric himself, so let's get to it. Windhelm, also known as the City of Kings, is located in northeastern Skyrim and is the capital of Eastmarch Holds. Now, just to clarify, Holds are the things that Skyrim split up into. It's the oldest city of man on Tamriel, anyway the one that's still standing, and it dates all the way back to the Murthic era. It's located on the banks of the White River, and its most imposing features are its walls, its very long bridge, and the giant keep known as the Palace of the Kings, which is one of the original First Empire buildings. Naturally, being in the north of Skyrim, it has a very cold climate and is surrounded by icy mountains, and it's often covered in snow itself. But when was Windhelm created? Well, this is where it is quite a complex story. I've mentioned before the return where Ysgramor and the 500 companions came across to retake Skyrim from the Snow Elves. They did this after the Night of Tears, I think it was called, and this was basically a genocide carried out by the Snow Elves on the Nords. Anyway, Ysgramor and the 500 companions returned and committed their own genocide on the Snow Elves, and that goes into a Dwemer video somewhere. Anyway, Ysgramor's son, Yongle, I think that's how you pronounce it, was separated from the rest of the fleet in a terrible storm. Ysgramor eventually found the shipwreck of Yongle's longboat and discovered that his son and crew had been slain by sea ghosts. I'm not going to explain what a sea ghost is, it's pretty self-explanatory. Ysgramor, in his grief, ordered a giant city to be constructed along the river where Yongle had died, or the one just in Eastmarch. It was built by, you could guess, elven captives, which were pretty much slaves at this point. Ysgramor really did blame the elves for everything, including the death of his son. He ordered a large bridge to be constructed to stop any elf from ever seeking into the castle. The castle itself was built to be as tall as possible, to show dominion over the land. It was built to have spires touching the sky, as to show dominion over the very winds that took his son. So, now the Nords were here to stay. There's not too many Snow Elves, and, well, the ones that are Snow Elves are kind of, turning into Falmer over time, and the Nords are pretty happy. They started to settle the land, and the Ysgramor dynasty began, which used Windhelm as its capital city, and this was the beginning of the First Empire. Why does everything in Windhelm look so broken and damaged and, rough? Well, in the First Era it was sacked during the War of Succession, which is basically an argument over who was going to be the new High King of Skyrim, kind of like the one that you do face in Elder Scrolls V. It was then attacked in the Second Era by the Akaviri invasion, and only the Palace of the Kings was left standing, so there's that. Apart from that, the city's also suffered through numerous famines, and, well, let's face it, in the Elder Scrolls V, it's not exactly in very good shape. Right, now we're going to talk about a bit of a sensitive issue in Windhelm, the segregation with the Dark Elves, the Argonians, and basically anybody who isn't a Nord. After the eruption of Red Mountain, many Dunmer were turned into refugees, and a lot of them fled to Windhelm. Unfortunately, the Nords don't like elves, okay? It's a very tit-for-tat thing between the Nords and the elves. They commit one genocide, the Nords go commit another. It just goes on and on. Anyway, the Nords, really not wanting to have to share their city, but kind of did anyway, they're just like, we'll just go put them in a certain little part of the city called the Grey Quarter, which in itself's pretty racist, with the whole entire skin colour thing. But the elves still got treated better than the Argonians, who aren't even allowed to really go into the city. Instead, they're forced to be inside of something called the Argonian Assemblage, which is kind of just a big building to put them all in. They did this Probably because maybe putting all of both the Argonians and the elves together wasn't such a good idea because, well, the Dark Elves have a bit of a history of enslaving Argonians, so it could have just been to stop them fighting, and I guess Argonians drew the short straw. It really can't be denied that Windhelm's a very controversial place. The city itself was built on hate, through Ysgramor's hate of the elves, built through slaves. It's very, very controversial, but some would maybe even argue that it gets worse when Ulfric takes over. Ooh, we can talk about the Stormcloaks now.